Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Looking forward to and have been wanting to share this particular show with you now for weeks. And one of the reasons why I held back just a couple more weeks is that I wanted to see if there's really anything that could match this particular study on overall anti-aging and longevity. And I'll tell you what, I have not found it, and I have been combing through the research. So I'm really excited because this is something that I've been using myself and with my clients for years now. And if you're not already doing it, it is one of the least expensive things that you could possibly do, with the most amount of research now behind it in a very well done study and clinical trial that I'm going to share with you now. So much so that it's literally less than $3 a day. And I was, looking up certain prices for different things. There's almost nothing that you can get for $3 a day now. I don't even know if you can get a coffee out anymore for $3 a day. You can't buy a can of tuna for $3 a day. So this is pretty impressive. And again, no doubt that it's going to be able to help you on your journey if you're not already doing it. All right, so let's dive right in now. The study I wanted to share with you is called the Do Health Study. It was done with over 2,000 older participants, typically around 70 years old, but they were overall healthy. Now, one of the reasons why that's so key is that for people that are unhealthy, they would get even better results. So the truth is, for this to be done on an older population, so not even younger, where you're going to see better biological adjustments in terms of biological age. This is an older population and they were healthy. So pretty remarkable. Over 2,000 participants, 3-year intervention period, and participants, as I said, were generally healthy at 70 plus years old. They focused on 3 major components, which I'm going to go through with you, every single one of them, but they also compared them against each other as well as in combination. And not only did they compare it for aging, improvements in overall biological aging. So if we don't know what that means, essentially you have your chronological age. These people, let's say they were 70, right? Let's say their biological age was also 70. That's the rate of aging. They were essentially aging 1 year per year of life lived. Okay, by the end of this study, they were able to reduce that by 3.8 years. That means other people in the participant study were 73 years old if they were in a control-based group. Okay, they aged 3 years. The others actually aged backwards. They would have been, what would be the math on that? 76.2, right around there, right? So they actually went backwards, 66.2 versus 73 years old. I mean, that is not just a swing of 3.8 years. We're looking at other people getting older. So pretty remarkable study. So what exactly did they do to get these amazing results? Because as I've said before, I've looked at all the research. I've looked at, okay, will CoQ10 lower your age? Will nicotinamide riboside? And okay, we've got mouse models on it, but we don't have as much human clinical data that we would really like. So a lot of these things show promise, but this is real human clinical data on older populations, and we're healthy, which is, for me, one of the gold standards, because it's easy to show dramatic improvement if someone has heart disease, type 2 diabetes, or is 60 pounds overweight. You help someone lose 50 out of that 60 pounds, everything's going to get better, dramatically better. But these people are already good at baseline. So what do? The first one is this. They added omega-3s into their diet. So here's the other amazing thing. They didn't even ask these people to change their nutrition. Literally, they did not change their nutrition, and they were able to get the best results, again, that I've seen with overall longevity and anti-aging, just specifically in a larger clinical trial that does last at least 3 years. So with the omega-3s, they got a 13% reduction in infections, 13% reduction in falls, significant slowing of biological aging, and they only did it with just between 1 and 2 grams of omega-3s each and every day. Simple, very straightforward, and this had a meaningful reduction in biological aging with just omega-3s alone. But what else did they do? Well, they actually added vitamin D3. But the amount they added wasn't even that high. And I'm not a mega dose nutritional supplement practitioner as well. So I actually recommend 2 grams of omega-3s. They did between 1 and 2. So fantastic. How much vitamin D3 did they take? Well, they wanted them in this clinical study when they would do their blood work. They wanted them to show up with at least 30 nanograms per milliliter. Now, for me, that's That's borderline low. It's not even borderline low. That's so low for vitamin D3. The sweet spot is 50 to 70 nanograms per milliliter. So in my practice, I'm always at that's what I'm shooting for every single one of my clients, and I'll even go up to 80, but no more than that unless they're on a specific cancer support protocol, et cetera. Okay, so they took 2,000 to 2,800 IUs of vitamin D3 every day. In our practice, we're typically recommending between 4 and 6,000, usually right in the middle at 5,000. I take a 5,000 IU supplement each and every day, my vitamin D3, and then I also take inside of the daily nutritional support, it has about another 800 or so, which a lot of activated multivitamins do. And so that's why they allowed them to take an extra 800 in their multi if they were taking that, because they weren't specifically told to take a multi, but they allowed an extra 800 from other stuff that wasn't part of this study, and then a 2,000 IU supplement. So they got 2,800 or so per day. I recommend about double that. So their levels just had to be above a 30. That just literally means out of not being out of range, not getting rickets, right? Like that's kind of a big thing. And of course, they did that for overall improvement in frailty of the bones. And they showed even with that small amount, they were able to reduce frailty, pre-frailty of the bones by 39%. And again, I'm going to get to the cancer studies in just one moment, which is like astronomical. I would do this alone just for cancer prevention, but that was the vitamin D3. So very impressive. Again, they recommend 2,800 IUs. I'm recommending between 4 and 6,000 IUs for most adults. Most people should just take a 5,000 IU plus whatever they might get in just normal activated multi or daily nutritional support. But then next time you run your stress hormone metabolism test or your vitamin D3 or whatever, just make sure it's basically between a 50 and an 80 or 50 and a 70 if you like to be right around there. I found that for me, I take the same every day, and what it leads to is about a 70 to a 75 nanograms per milliliter of my blood work. I'm perfectly okay with that. That feels great. It's good for my immune system, good for my bones, good for recovery, good for all those different things, right? Hopefully, cancer prevention as well. All right, what was the last part? So those are the first two, right? What's a good omega-3? That's triglyceride bound, that has no heavy metals in it, right? That's third-party tested. And that's clinically tested, right, to have what it says it's going to have in there with a little bit more EPA than DHA. How much is that? Maybe $1.50 or $2 a day. And what's vitamin D3? Maybe 50 cents to $1 a day, right? So it's very inexpensive, right? If we're just talking about those two nutritional supplements. Now, what's the third one? Well, those are already $3, so the third one can't cost anything, right? It is called a SHEP protocol. I've talked about this before, but a simple home exercise program. Now, this is referred to as resistance training or strength training. Here's the interesting thing though. They didn't give them a hard program or a real challenging program. All they said was, we want you to focus on body weight exercises. I'm going to give you some of those in a moment, and band work, like exercise bands. So remember, these individuals are around 70 plus years old. They had them doing things like chair squats. So what is that? Again, I've used that in my practice for years. Sit down to a chair and stand back up. That's a real functional movement, right? That's a great thing to be able to do. And they would have them do that for anywhere from 5 to 10 repetitions or so. They had them hold on to a chair or a wall or something and do calf raises. They would do some presses and pulls, very basic movements. So all that to say is I don't want you to be intimidated by implementing any one of these particular things. So if we're talking about an exercise program, you don't need to do boot camp. You don't need to do barbell back squats. You don't need to do anything that you believe might get you injured, because you shouldn't, especially in your 70s, right? So what do you want to do? You want to just literally use a graduated exercise program. So you're always just going to start with some type of walking or light bike. Get your body used to just some type of tension on it. Then you're going to do body weight based exercises or some bands. Some things you just have to use a band. So for example, it's very difficult to work your postural muscles all over the posterior chain. So think about like your back muscles. The only way to really work your back muscles is a pull down, meaning a vertical pull or a horizontal pull. So basically a pull down or, a pull up would be the same, or you could do a row of some type. But besides that, it's really challenging to work your back, which is why as we sit forward and we get kyphotic, we round forward, those muscles get elongated and they get weak, and certain parts get tight as well, like our internal rotators. So for me, it's key that people just have a simple exercise band and they literally do some rows, and they can do some pulls if they want as well. But that's a great way to really balance out your posture as well. So they focused on functional movements, chair squats, maybe a low step up, some calf raises where basically you're holding on to something for balance, and then you're lifting your heels off the ground and then slowly lowering back down. Things that will help prevent falls as well. Like that's very, very important. And how many times they do it? 30 minutes, 3 times a week. That was it. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Just keep that day in between, 30 minutes. That's all that it took, and literally nothing fancy whatsoever. So when we look at the results though of this program, because I have to share this with you, it is just consistency overall. So a lot of people say, well, you should take your supplements for 4 days and then take 3 days off, or take your supplements for 3 weeks and then take 1 week off. There's nothing behind that. And I get like that people are coming up with theories around it, and maybe you take a day off or maybe 2 a month or so if you want to. But the truth is that your body is combating oxidative stress and free radicals each and every day. Every day it needs a balanced and anti-inflammatory nutrition. Every day it needs some type of vitamin D3 to a degree, right? That's why you don't want to mega dose one day and then take less the next. It's just your body from nature in a balanced world would get a little bit every day, whatever it needs, not a mega dose once a week. It's just that never makes sense, and it never gets proven out in the studies. When you look at taking vitamin D3, like we did right here, it's remarkable. And actually on tomorrow's show, I'll give you the cancer studies as well. But when you take vitamin D3 each and every day, you don't get the calcium into the arteries, you don't get the bone loss. And the reason you don't is that you're taking a small amount that you would get from the sun, just a little bit of sun each and every day. Like that's what you would get it from. But when you take a massive dose, it actually begins to pull the calcium from the bones, and it begins to pull that into the arteries. And that's certainly not good. And if you've looked at the studies, you can see that anywhere from 100,000 to 300,000, which some doctors give 50,000 a couple times a week, that's the wrong way to do it. Again, 5,000 daily versus 50,000 or 100,000 once a week, or in some studies, 300,000 once a month. Again, it makes no sense. You don't get all of your sun in one day of the month. Okay, so to recap this, here's what I wanted to share with you, because I don't want to get this confusing at all. You can reduce your biological age over the next 3 years by 3.8 years by simply taking 1 to 2 grams of omega-3 fish oil a day, by taking 2,800 to 5,000 or so vitamin D3 international units. And yes, you can take it with K2 if you would like, but if you're taking the daily nutritional support or even the daily activated multi, there'll be K2 in that, but that's up to you. And then 3 strength training workouts per week. I can see it right now that taking the omega-3, simple, right? Taking the vitamin D3, simple. I take my omega-3 at dinner. You can take yours at when you would like. Some of our clients take 1 capsule at lunch and 1 at dinner. But take your vitamin D3 in the morning or at lunch at the latest. You want that the first half of the day so that when your body would be used to getting it from the sun, that's really when you do want it. Now, your strength training can be done really any time of the day. Keep it away from 3 hours before bed minimum. But besides that, you can really work with it how you want. And this has to be something that you'll stick with consistently. The omega-3s, vitamin D3, simple, right? Those are easy to habit stack. You take them with the meal, but we need to find time for that strength training, because when you combined all 3 of these is when you got the most benefits. And that included, I'm going to talk about it more tomorrow, so make sure you tune into tomorrow's show. But it was about a 60%, and I'll give you the exact stats tomorrow, but about a 60% reduction in cancer when they looked at this 3-year study. And it's only over 3 years, which is remarkable. Imagine if it keeps going. So just that alone, besides the reduction in biological age, I think should get most people to look in this deeper. Of course, I can't give you medical advice, but for my family, my private clients, myself, everyone. This is what I recommend as the minimum stack for most people. Daily activated multi, daily omega-3, vitamin D3. I wrote about that in my new book, Personomics. I said, if you do nothing else, this is really what you want to do. If you want to see the exact products we use in our practice that are third-party tested, you can go to stephencabral.com/shop. Just type in daily omega-3. You can type in vitamin D3. Again, you don't have to get them there. Look at the label, look at the exact dosage, and then you'll find the right company that works for you. Hopefully this was helpful. And for all 3 links to this study, the PubMed, the clinical trials, and Do Health's website done out of Europe, I'm actually going to link all of this at stephencabral.com/3758. Have an amazing day, everybody. And of course, if you believe this show could be helpful to anybody, do feel free to share it with anyone you believe it could serve. Take care.